In my last video, I showed how we are going to take a Scalextric car and put a C-chip in it. In this video, which will be shorter, I'm going to do something different. This is the connector that we used in the last one. In this case, we're going to remove this connector completely, and we're going to use some of the C-chip leads, and others we're not going to use. We're going to solder to the C-chip to make a simpler installation, but more permanent. In this case, the C-chip will still mount in the same spot. We'll still drill a hole like we did last time. We'll still use blue tack to hold the C-chip in place, as well as the hall sensor. But it'll be more permanent, as we'll solder the wires instead of using the connector. The first step is to cut the connector off as close as we can, because the connector will no longer be used. We want the wires to be as long as they can so we can use them again. The wires in this case, from the red and black in the front, are actually for the lights. We're going to use the green and yellow to go to the C-chip, and we'll probably use the wires from the C-chip to tie directly to the motor. But ultimately, before we're done, in order to get the front lights to work, we're going to have to tie the front lights across to the motor as well. For this chassis, I drilled a hole using the same spot I did on the last time, but I did not remove the door. I left it in place, and I just drilled a hole nice and centered down just below the axle area toward the rear of the vehicle. Our C-chip will mount exactly the same way it did last time, right in the center spot after I drilled the hole, and we can see that the LED will stick through the bottom exactly in the center of the hole. In this case, we have a little piece of standoff in the middle, which will actually help us align the C-chip, but we still have to deal with that screw. That screw is still sticking up a little bit, and we have to protect for it, although in this case, the screw is not sticking up anywhere near the level it was in the last car, and so maybe we can get away with a couple layers of tape across it just to protect it. I decided to just use regular Scotch 33 plus electrical tape. I'm going to cut 3 small strips to go over that screw head, just enough to protect us, but enough that we will not cause any issues in rising up above. Each strip I will just lay down over the screw. It likes to stick to my hands just as well as the car. Well, I'm going to put 3 layers across it just to make sure that there is no issues with that screw poking through to the underside of the C-chip. As I've shown in my previous videos, I'm just going to take the blue tack, put it right in the area that I plan to mount the C-chip, set it down nice and tight, and make sure that we've got a good layer of blue tack ready for the C-chip to be mounted. In this case, I'm going to put a piece of the insulation back over it, because we're going to do some soldering to the C-chip first, and I don't want the C-chips actually touching the blue tack and getting stuck before I'm ready to mount it permanently in place. Now comes the first part of soldering to the C-chip. For those who are not used to soldering, I highly recommend you find someone who can do this for you. We're just going to touch that pad where the red lead leads off to the front, and we're going to try to get enough heat just on that pad to bring the wire off. We're going to do the same thing on the opposite side, just enough heat to get the red wire off, and put those on the side. The next thing we have to do is decide how long we want the yellow and green wires that are already in the car, and we want them to have a little extra room, but not too much, and cut them off, and we will have to strip them so that we can get the wire on each side bare, so we can solder that back to the chip. I'm going to strip both those using strippers. They're just enough needs to be exposed so that we can get solder onto those edges of those wires and onto the C-chip. We don't want too much in that area, because if we get too much, then we're going to have a solder short in the C-chip, or we'll have to heat the C-chip too much. I tinned both the green and the yellow wires, and now I will solder each one on. Again, if you're good at soldering, this is not a difficult operation. However, if you are, find someone who's good so they can come and solder this for you. You want to get just enough heat to reflow that solder in both locations on both sides, and then both the guide wire or the pickup wires will be soldered to the chip. It doesn't take much. It happens very quickly. And now we're ready to mount the C-chip using the blue tack. I'm going to pull the insulation layer off, or the release layer actually I should call that. And now I need to get the C-chip as far forward as necessary so that we can see the LED through the hole. Once the LED is centered in the hole, we can then press the C-chip down into the blue tack so that it securely holds the C-chip into the chassis. Again, double checking, and like we've seen before, some of the blue tack will potentially ooze out into the area, and at this point it's fairly easy for us just to take our X-Acto knife and trim around the hole so that we clear the blue tack away from the LED. We do not want any of the blue tack causing any issue for the LED to be seen by the track when it's racing. And again, you can press some of it back into the spot just as easy as well. The LED is now very clearly seen. The C-chip is down. I can look closely to make sure I have no wires shorting anywhere. They are rubbing on the axle a little bit, and so I will take and very carefully bend those leads back a little bit just to make sure that there's no rubbing on the axle, as the axle is now free to spin. Similar to what I did in the other car, I will put the blue tack just below the right wheel, and then with the sensor facing down and again facing in line, we have to make sure these sensors stay in line as well as facing down. We want to get the sensor so that it is parallel to the chassis, just behind the wheel, and again, as other people have done, putting a little blue tack, folding it over so that it has a nice clean connection, and holding that sensor in place is critical as we go forward. And the blue tack molds very easily, and so it's very simple to use. We have 2 more wires to hook up. Again, this vehicle came from the manufacturer with a ferrite man, so we don't need the ferrite man from Slotted. I believe the correct wiring will be in line so that the right side of the chip goes to the right side of the motor, which is the red dot, and the other side will then go to the other side of the motor. Again, we will have to strip the wires back a little bit so that we have them just enough to solder to the motor. And we have to also connect the red and the black wires coming from the front, which are for the light kit. We cut those off, if you remember, from the connector, so we'll need to strip them. In both cases, strip back a little bit, and then solder them all together, the left side to the left side with the black, right side to the right side. I'll do a little twisting here so that the wires are twisted together, and we can tin them, and we can tack solder them onto the motor. Again, we don't need any more than a good solid solder connection. In this case, because the solder will hold these wires, it has been proven to work quite well for many hundreds of hours of racing. The main thing is to make sure that you are not shorting these two red wires coming from the slotted Oxigen chip to anything, just a solid connection to the motor. And now we'll do the black side. Again, I'm being very careful that I am not shorting any of these wires, and I will do an inspection now to make sure that none of these connections are touching any metal parts to potentially short them together. And if you remember, we have one black lead and one red lead left that used to be connected to the connector. We don't need these, so we can cut them off or trim them off. And so now we have our light kit to the back coming to the motor with the ferrite man that was originally in the vehicle. We can push these down along the sides a little bit, and maybe we'll stick them with some blue tack. The antenna for the racing, for the C-chip. The green and the yellow are connected to the C-chip. This is a very clean installation, although this C-chip is now semi-permanent, as it will take some unsoldering if we want to remove it and take it out. Time to take this car to the track, register the C-chip, and make sure our wiring is correct. I've returned from the track, successfully registering the chip, making sure that it is properly connected with the wiring. And indeed, if you follow the wiring, it comes from the right side through the chip right into the motor, the left side through the chip right into the motor, using the ferrite man that was in the chip originally when the car was made. The good news about this car is there's very little issues underneath, other than move the men's feet out of the way, the driver's feet out of the way a little bit, and these two pieces go together perfectly. The chassis still mates up without a problem with the body. We can put the screws in place, and this car is ready to race.